Welcome to Jane Jackson Careers, a podcast to inspire you to take your career to the next level. In this podcast, I chat with amazing professionals who are leaders in their field and find out what's made them a success. Many of them have successfully made changes in their careers. They may have changed industry, changed job function, made big city or country moves, or taken the huge leap into entrepreneurship. I also share practical and actionable career tips for those who want to explore what to do next in their career and aren't sure about what steps to take to get moving. Subscribe to this podcast for regular updates or visit me at janejacksoncoach.com.
This is Colin Gray from the podcasthost.com and you're listening to Jane Jackson Careers.
Well, hello and welcome back to my Careers podcast. Today I am very lucky to be chatting with Rhamya Freitas. Now, Rhamya runs a fashion label, GM2NY, which is a travel-inspired luxury fashion brand. This brand was initially conceived as a side project while Rhamya was working full-time at American Express as a marketing executive. Based on her love of travel, Rhamya uses photos from all of her travels, including locally in Australia, and digitally prints them on silk scarves and reworks them for leather goods and satin shoes. They're really beautiful. The project took off with retailers and customers very quickly, and 10 months into Rhamya's project, while she was still working at American Express, her role at AMEX was made redundant, and this turned out to be the perfect opportunity to capitalize on the interest in her new brand, and she turned this fun project into a business that has made a profit in its very first year of her working full-time on it, and she hasn't looked back. Now, I'm very lucky to have Rhamya in the show today. Let's find out more about her fabulous fashion success story. Welcome to the show, Rhamya.
Hi, Jane. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm just thrilled to hear all about your story because I met you 2 years ago when you were going through your career transition, and that was when you were just starting out and building the brand, and oh my goodness, you've come such a long way since then.
Oh, thank you.
And now, how about you tell us a little bit about your early days? Where are you from?
So I'm originally from Sri Lanka, and we moved to Australia when I was about 3 years old. So I've been here for about 28 years now. So I've grown up here.
Mm-hmm. And what career did you dream about when you were a little girl and you were in your teens?
I think when I was quite young, I was always drawn to anything design or art related. But coming from a very conservative family, they pushed me towards something that's more easy to find a job in. So they pushed me towards commerce. And from that field, I always was drawn to marketing because it still has that creative aspect to it.
And so being in marketing actually has probably put you in really good stead for marketing your own business now.
Exactly. So I was always feeling like I missed out on studying design. But as we've come to where I am now, I get to do the design, but I have the business background, which gives me an edge over some other businesses out there.
Yeah, well, I think it makes you more of an all-round businesswoman. So once you graduated, and you obviously must have majored in marketing, and you were in your early 20s, what was your first job?
My first job was a graduate at Sun Microsystems. So it was an IT company where I had got my hands on a few different projects, from events to advertising, things like that. So I had a nice all-round marketing education.
And then from Sun Microsystems, did you have a couple of different jobs or did you go straight into American Express?
I did have a couple of different jobs. I tried my hand at communications for Sydney Water, and I also did a bit of work for some other IT companies in marketing. And I think American Express, though, was the next really big role that I had, where I was a marketing executive, and I was there for about 3 years. So at that point, I'd matured a lot in my learning of marketing, so I could settle there.
And tell me, how did this whole Get Me to New York business start to bubble along in your mind while you were working at American Express?
Well, while I was at American Express, I was very lucky that my manager was quite supportive of my love of travel. So I would take all my leave and go on vacations with my now husband. So while I was doing that, I would love taking photos, and I wanted to do something interesting with it, which with my skill, which wasn't just being another photographer. I wanted to do something that merged a few of my interests, such as fashion. So that's how that idea came along.
And so, what was the first design that you came up with?
It was a silk scarf, which is some New York cabs, the yellow cabs against the black and white cityscape, and it ended up being one of the best sellers of ours.
Yeah, I've seen that scarf. It really is amazing, and it's so iconic, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's something that people still remember. So we've taken it off the market for a little bit, just so that people can love it more. And once we bring it back out again, it'll be fresh again.
Yeah, well, I think if people are waiting for it to come back, that's going to create demand, isn't it?
Hopefully.
So how did this all grow? So you started taking photos. You decided to turn them into silk scarves. How did the whole thing go about? How did you find where to get the scarves made, and how did you start to market it in the first place?
I'll be honest, I didn't start this as a business because I do love my fashion. So I wanted these scarves for myself, actually, and I found some manufacturers online, not manufacturers, sorry, printers, digital printers, to print some of my designs. And when my husband found out what I was doing, he chastised me and said, "Why are you doing it just for yourself? This is a great idea. We could sell it to a few people." So when I was getting these prints made, I asked a few friends if they also wanted some. A lot of them were very interested, so I thought maybe this is an idea. Ordered a few extra and thought I'll sell it at the markets. So when they finally came through, my husband helped build a website for it, and we started making sales without really trying, which was fantastic, just through word of mouth. And I never had to go to the markets to sell them after that because once word of mouth spread, we had some retailers that were interested, and it just went from there.
Wow, that's amazing. What a wonderful husband.
Yes.
What foresight. Otherwise, you would be wearing the one scarf that you made in the early days, and that would be it.
Exactly.
So really, your own passion for something beautiful has turned into a really successful business, and very, very quickly too.
Yeah, and that would be a lot. A lot of it is contributed to my husband. He's got the entrepreneurial skill, whereas I'm very risk averse. And he took my passion for photography and fashion and art, and he helped me channel it into something that I can now do for a living, which I really appreciate.
Oh, that's just amazing. Now, I know your products are not just scarves now. Can you tell us all about the other offerings that you have too?
Yes, definitely. So once we started on the scarves, we realized they're not so unique. Our designs are, but there are plenty of scarf brands out there. So we wanted to build on our brand that was already getting a lot of traction and a lot of loyal customers. So what we did was we thought of ways we could use our designs that were still interesting and luxurious. So then the next step was to create some leather goods with printed lining. So I love luxurious leather goods when they're made well, but I find that there can always be a pop of color to keep it interesting for yourself, even if not everyone can see it. So that's what we did by inserting the lining.
Actually, well, as you know, I ordered one of your travel wallets recently,
Yes.
which is a beautiful burnt orange colour. And when you open it up, the lining it just feels special. It's really nice to have something hidden away, so it's a bit of a surprise. And actually, by the way, your travel wallet is amazing. It's got so many compartments to it. It's perfect. You can fit the passport in there. You can fit, all the credit cards and receipts and notes. And anyway, I love it. And it feels very nice too. Yeah, so that's
That's
great.
what we wanted to do. Something luxurious, but it's still connected to travel.
Yeah.
I use the travel wallet actually as a wallet myself, but I can use it for travel. I can fit different currencies. And it's something now that is still linked to travel, but it's still linked to luxury, which I love.
Yes, and also, the scarves are so luxurious as well. So everything is travel themed, and
Yes,
even with
that's
your
right.
shoes, because I've noticed that I don't have any of the shoes yet, but I noticed that you use the designs from your scarves on your shoes, so they're really beautiful and bright, and they really pop.
That's right. So what we did was we created some travel inspired shoes. These are flats, and they're leather on the interior and satin on the outside. So I have a tendency to design things that I personally love so I can have them as well, which is sometimes I feel like it's cheating a bit, but it seems to be popular with other people, thankfully. But what we did was we wanted to make flats which were luxurious but still very comfortable. And that's why we created something that can still be worn on travel, still be worn on a night out or during the day, and use our prints in a unique way that no one else is doing that.
Yeah. You know, in a way, I wish that this was visual rather than audio so that people could see everything that you've got. But we'll tell everyone where they can have a look at all of your designs and your website in a little while. Now, I want to talk about Rhamya, the entrepreneur, okay, the businesswoman. Tell me, what is the most rewarding aspect of you and entrepreneurship and running your own business?
I think that it is quite a struggle sometimes because you absorb all the pain as well as the good things that happen. So it's very up and down. But because you do absorb a lot of the hardship, when good things happen or you get to create beautiful things or customers say nice things about how much they love the product, that is what really gets me going and makes me really happy to do this business, that I've created something not only that I love, but other people get to enjoy as well.
Yeah, and they're so beautiful. What about the challenging aspects? What's the hardest thing about running your own business?
I guess a lot of the sacrifices that my husband and I have had to make. When we started this, we didn't want to borrow off from a bank or have investors. We wanted to do this ourselves so that we could have 100% of the profits. But in doing that, sometimes you miss out on things. You might have to skip a holiday that you would normally have planned or think twice about going to a nice restaurant, things like that. They're not big sacrifices, but they happen quite frequently, week by week. And you just have to be careful about where you put your money and how you invest it so that your business can be the one that gets as much investments as possible.
And I expect that with the redundancy when you left American Express, that would have helped a lot as well.
Yes, it did, definitely. So that was such a great way to invest into the business and good timing as well. So I get to invest my full time into the business and my redundancy. So I think that really helped.
Yeah. You know what was interesting was last Friday I conducted a Road to Entrepreneurship workshop, and I had about 15 people who had also gone through a redundancy, and they were exploring the potential opportunities of going into entrepreneurship. Some had some great ideas, some were just thinking about it. And I really highlighted them the importance of being so passionate about a business before you actually launch into it, because it's tough running a business, isn't it?
That's right. You do have to be 100% committed, and it does help if you really love what you do, because there'll be a lot of bad days as well. And if you can't push through that, then it's going to be quite a struggle.
Yeah. I find that even for myself running my own coaching business, there are days when I just think, oh my goodness, I've bitten off more than I can chew. Why am I doing this? And when I think back to the reason why I'm doing it and how I know that I'm able to help a lot of people, we've got to have that underlying reason that pushes us through even during the tough times.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think it's a combination of if it's something that you're also good at combined with the passion, then it'll feel easier to excel in. So you're not fighting against yourself if you don't have the skill for it. So that I found that's important as well.
Yeah, and I guess it must be good that you're a good photographer too.
I wouldn't say that, but I have had to improve my skills because now it's a business.
Yeah.
So I take it very seriously.
Yeah.
Take my my cameras very seriously now, and it's great because previously when I take photos on holidays, my husband would get very annoyed at how long I was taking to photograph something. Now he will sit patiently for 20 minutes while I take one photo, and he'll just remind himself, well, I remember how much of a big seller this other scarf was, so I'm going to be quiet.
Yes. I guess everywhere you go, you've got that true photographer's eye now, because you must be looking out for, just interesting photos everywhere you go. Because I've follow you on Instagram, obviously, and you've got some of the most amazing pictures of, like little nooks and crannies and streets and colours, and it's just, you've got a really, really good eye.
Thank you.
Now, also, there was a book, a coffee table book that you came up with. I can't remember. What was it called?
It was from New York with Love.
Yes, that's right. And how's
just
that going?
A little project. That was just a little side project I did just for myself. I went to New York for about 6 weeks with my husband, which is part of where the name came from. I always knew I'd spend a lot of time in New York in my life. It's the one place my husband and I really love. And we just did it for fun to remember the trip by, and for other New York lovers. So yeah, it's good. It'll always be around. We'll keep printing it as much as people want it.
Mm-hmm. And the name Get Me to New York, how did that come about?
So when I started the hobby, I knew we would be going to New York for a significant time for a holiday. And I also knew I'd be married and I wouldn't be allowed to go crazy with shopping like I love to. So that's why I thought this hobby would fund my shopping. But it turned into a business, so I didn't want to touch the money in the end. So it's quite ironic how that all worked out. But we still got to go on an amazing trip thanks to the business and take amazing photos and have a great time. So no complaints.
Yeah, and I love the name Get Me to New York because it's so different. It's just an unusual name and people do remember it. So that's fantastic. Now, tell me about a typical working day. You wake up in the morning. I'm sure there's multiple things that you need to do. Give me a day in the life of Rhamya.
My day is actually quite varied, which I like. It could be anything from spending the entire day to shipping big orders for retailers or just answering emails and designing at home. So it's quite varied, which I really like because it's not the same thing every day. And working from home means flexibility, so I can go out with my laptop and go through some photos and start designing and reappropriating photos in the sun. And sometimes it's not so fun like that. Other times I'm, packing orders and shipping them and spending my days with couriers and Australia Post. But either way, it's varied and very entertaining.
Has it been challenging at all working with the manufacturers?
It has. Some of the best manufacturers and digital printers, which are what I need for, people to print my product, are based in China. And so there's often a language barrier. And, over time I've learned to work with it and get around it. But every now and then you still have issues. But I guess it's just part of working with manufacturers.
Yeah. What was interesting is in 2 interviews ago, I interviewed a gentleman called Carsten Primdahl, and his business is helping people actually liaise with manufacturers in China, because he's a China expert as well. So that's just interesting because it ties in. You and Carsten should have a chat sometime.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Now, for someone who wants to get into the fashion business, what would be your top 3 tips for success?
I would say first is building up your social media profile. So even if you haven't finalized what your products are or website even, you can still build a customer base or a following by posting pictures of what your brand will aspire to. And I found that really helps because once you do create your products and you do start selling it and posting it on your social media such as Facebook and Instagram, you'll already have a good following to sell to. Because these days building a website and putting it out there doesn't mean you'll necessarily make sales. There's so many websites, so many brands out there. You need to stand out. So this just makes it a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. So that would be my first tip. My second tip would be to make sure you have a really good relationship with your manufacturers because they can be the ones that undo your business. If you don't have a product to sell, you don't have a business anymore. And so if you're confident with your manufacturers and the products you're making and they're happy with you as well, then you're going to have a great business relationship and that will lead to a much easier life with producing and manufacturing your designs. And I think the third tip is to just be confident about what you're doing. A lot of people find that if they create what they think is trend-worthy, that they will be able to make a business out of themselves. And but what you're really doing is creating more of what's already out there. And it feels like almost everything has been invented or created already, but there's always a way for you to put your own spin on it. And I think that's what will make someone who wants to do this stand out and sell their product easier.
Well, those are really valuable tips. So build your social media profile, develop strong relationships with your manufacturers, and be confident in yourself and put your own spin on any ideas that you come up with.
Yeah.
And so where can we find you? On Facebook, on Instagram? What's your handle?
So you can find all my social media on my website, which is GM2NY.com. That's the number 2. And so our Facebook is facebook.com/getmetonewyork, and our Instagram is instagram.com/GM2NY.
And currently, do you have any special offers for our listeners today?
We do. So if you enter the discount code, which is Jane, into the shopping cart page, you'll be able to get 25% off for the rest of August.
Oh, fantastic. So till the 30th of August, 25% Rhamya's range at Get Me to New York if you use the discount code, which amazingly is Jane, Jane. How fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, Rhamya. It's really, really interesting to talk to you and to hear how you moved from Sun Microsystems to Sydney Water to American Express in marketing, going through a redundancy, and then really capitalizing on change and creating an incredible new fashion label that now you've been in Fashion Week and you're stocked all over Australia too. And if someone wanted to find your products but not online, is there anywhere you can recommend for us to go?
Yeah, on our website, we have a list of all our retailers across Australia and internationally. Okay. So you can always come through there or just email us for a particular product and we'll point you in the right direction.
Okay, so if someone wanted to email you, how do they reach you? What's your email address?
They can get us at info@gm2ny.com.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Rhamya, from Get Me to New York, the new fashion label that's really taking the world by storm. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Jane.
Okay, you're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Jane Jackson Careers. Sign up to receive regular career advice at janejacksoncoach.com.